Well, hello everyone and welcome to another complete growing guide here on the MIgardener channel. In today's growing guide, we're talking about beans. This will apply to both pole beans and bush beans. The only difference will be that pole beans obviously require some sort of trellising or netting to climb up. However, we're going to be planting bush beans here in this episode, and they're a very simple plant to grow. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do when you're planting beans is you're going to want to prepare the soil. The soil should be something loose. It should be loose and fluffy, have a lot of organic matter, but it should not be super high in nitrogen. Oftentimes when you plant beans, you want to fertilize the entire garden. However, when I plant beans, I always reserve a little bit away from other plants to make sure that I don't have them with any fertilizer. Beans, if they're given a high nitrogen fertilizer, they're going to get very green, but they're not going to put out a whole lot of fruit. And also with fertilizer in terms of the phosphorus and the potassium as well, I don't give them a whole lot of that either. And that's because the beans, you want them to just grow on their own. Beans are a legume, which means they have nitrogen fixing nodules, and they are going to actually fix their own nitrogen into the soil. And I find that if you fertilize them, it will actually end up over-fertilizing. So I really just let them kind of do their own thing. I do, of course, rely on a very organic soil that has a lot of organic matter that's going to break down, and that typically is enough. Just compost has enough nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, along with other micronutrients and stuff, to sustain the plant. And you really don't have to add any more than that. The pH of the soil, I always make sure it's pretty even. I don't like to have too acidic of soil for beans. Now, when it comes to the amount of sunlight, you want to make sure that these little beans here are going to get between 4 and 6 hours of sun. Full sun is great, but I find oftentimes it can actually burn the leaves. And so sometimes less sun is better, but you don't want to give them too little sun because then they won't produce anything at all. So again, 4 to 6 hours is great amounts of sun for these beans, as long as it's full sun. Now, the next thing is with the soil temperature. Beans really do need warm soil temperature. If you're starting from seed, which we're not for this episode, but you can start from seed. They're very easy to start from seed as well. However, one thing you're going to need to do is you're going to want to wait for the soil temperatures to warm up. If you plant when the soil temperatures are kind of cool to warm, that's still not enough. You need the soil temperature to be about 60 degrees in order to have a very successful plant. Because what happens is when the soil is wet and cool, there's a lot of bacteria and microbes that love to feed on the beans, and you'll find that the plants really just have a very poor germination rate. So if you've ever planted beans in the early spring season, like we all have, hey, I've done it, where you plant it and you get so excited because you just planted out your entire garden of beans, only to find out that there's such spotty germination you have to go back and replant. It's best to just wait till the soil temperature is warm. The next thing that, as I'm planting, that I want to touch on is spacing. You want to space your plants every 4 to 7 inches. Oftentimes people say that they need to be 1.5 feet, 2 feet apart, and that's just silly. You're not going to get the production out of that given space that you're looking for, and you're going to waste a lot of space. So with that 4 to 7 inches, you're going to be just fine. However, what you're going to want to do is, since I've started these from seed, you're going to want to make sure that you come back here and thin. As you can see, 3 plants, 2 plants, kind of 2.5 and 3 plants. You want to pick the healthiest because that is going to be overcrowded. And so I'll come through here and I'll just pick out the healthiest plant of these, and that's going to be fine. And that way there's not going to be overcrowding, because if they are overcrowded, it's going to produce a lot less. However, they are something that people oftentimes give too much space. So that is done. They're going to do a whole lot better that way. And they're going to really, really appreciate that thinning as well. The very last thing comes when it comes time to harvest. You want to make sure that you stay up on harvesting beans. Oftentimes people just kind of get tired of harvesting beans because, frankly, 4 plants is enough to feed a family of 3. I mean, they really produce a lot of beans. However, if you want to continuously have a good harvest, you want to make sure that you harvest. And if you don't want them, just give them to some friends. But the thing is that as soon as you start letting beans go too long, it sends a signal to the plant to stop producing flowers and stop producing beans, because it's going to start focusing energy on ripening the beans that have already been produced. So if you want a longer term harvest all the way through the season, it's best to keep harvesting, because that's going to encourage the plant to continue growing, and that will actually give more fruit. And hey, who doesn't love more fruit? You can throw it in the freezer, you can freeze it, you can throw it away to friends, whatever, but at least you harvest it so that when you want it later on in the future, you can have it and it's not wasted. So that's really all I got for you. This is a really easy growing guide, and it's a really easy plant to grow, so I hope you all will grow it. It's a delicious plant to snack on fresh. It also goes great in pretty much anything. So I definitely recommend growing some beans. And until next episode, hopefully you all are growing big or going home. Also, check out all our other growing guides on www.MIgardener.com. Go to videos section, select growing guides, and that's going to show you all the growing guides we've ever done. And also, if you have any requests for any growing guides you have not seen yet, put them in the comments box below. I'd love to know what you'd like to grow, and I'll talk to you all later. See ya. Bye.